Hey, this is AC Lockyer, and this is Ask a Soft Wash Systems Pro, where we're going to talk about the stains, the surface or substrate, the different tools, techniques, and chemicals that you're going to need to take care of your cleaning and issues that you're having around your home or property. And this week, we've got Jeremiah Gibson. Jeremiah Gibson is in what city in Kansas?
Salina,
Salina.
Kansas.
I didn't want to mispronounce it and say Salina, potato. But anyhow, right now the producer's probably zooming in on the map right there to show everybody where you're at. And of course, Jeremiah is part of the Soft Wash Systems licensed affiliates. Right now is the time of the recording of this podcast in 8 countries and 2 territories with an excess of 150 licensed affiliates. Hey, man, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And so a lot of the people that are, I wouldn't say a lot of people, a good third of the people that are at Soft Wash Systems as licensed affiliates have a cleaning heritage in specifically window cleaning. And you've got a window cleaning heritage. That's why you're jumping in here on one of our window cleaning podcasts. And this week, we're not going to just talk about windows. We're going to talk specifically about wood casement windows. So many people here may not know what a wood casement window is. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about what makes a window a wood casement window?
Oh, really? It just has to do with a window usually built for residential. It's made out of wood, just like it sounds. And a casement is a crank open style window. Obviously, you have single hung windows, you have double hung, but a casement window cranks open, and they're just a classic looking style of window.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of wood windows here in Florida because we have a tremendous amount of humidity. And so a lot of the windows here are either vinyl windows or aluminum windows. And especially, here in Florida, we have a window that's not widely used around the rest of the other country because they're not very efficient. It's called a jalousie window. Have you ever seen a jalousie window?
Those are the ones that kind of open up little lever.
Yeah, they tilt in and out. It's all individual pieces of like sheets of glass that, kind of come together and overlap each other. And those are pretty interesting to clean. But when you're talking about these, they have a crank on them. I remember as a kid seeing those types of windows, and they tilt out, correct? When you crank them?
They can. Yeah, there's some that tilt out, and there's some that open
open like a door. Yes.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I guess depending on what part of the country you're in, how much rain you get, like our windows all tilt out like this here because we get a lot of rain. That way you can open your windows and still get air circulation through your home. In other areas where it doesn't rain as much, they probably open up more like a door, which is crazy. I see ones that open up like a door in England a lot, but it rains like crazy there. But so those are casement windows. They have the cranks on them. And what are some of the cleaning conditions we might see in those? Because I think a lot of people think about glass, but there's more to that with these casement windows.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the windows made out of wood, they can swell. They can get a lot of moisture in there. There's a little more upkeep, I think, than people realize. Even the crank system themselves sometimes will kind of rot out, and you can't even open the window anymore, or the crank system can break. The other thing is, because they're wood, they use a glaze to hold that pane of glass in. So they'll have these little metal inserts to hold the glass, and then they glaze it and then paint it. So if you start seeing cracking, it's usually not just the paint. Usually the glaze underneath is cracking, which is holding on to tons of dirt. They can really be challenging if they're not maintained well.
And of course, they always paint or seal the outside of the wood, but if the panes of glass that are in there, if the glazing's coming out, that means you're getting moisture every time it rains into the unexposed wood. So you've got to make sure that glazing is always intact.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we ran into windows that the corners started getting moisture and they just start rotting out completely, and people will have to completely replace the window because of that.
That brings up a good point. When when people buy or sell homes here in Florida, especially, but I know it's this way in the rest of the country too, they do a home inspection, and the home inspector will come out and do a WDO report, which is a wood destroying organism report. And most people think termites on that, but they forget that that's also carpenter ants, that's carpenter bees. It could be mold, mildew, algae, fungus, moss, all those types of things. And as moisture gets into the wood on these windows, well, then of course you get wood rot. And that's a little harder to replace wood rot on a window than it is like on a window sill or even a door frame.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
In many cases, you might end up actually having to replace the whole window if you have wood rot on any one part of that window. It's just hard. Some of these windows get to be 15, 20, 25, 30 years old, and the companies go out of business or the styles change. And the parts for those windows may not be, especially the wooden stuff, may not be readily available.
Yeah, that's certainly the case. We've seen that, and sometimes, unfortunately, the homeowner's not paying attention even when they have the house painted, and
Mm-hmm.
so the painter will just cover over that rotted wood, and that paint will start peeling within 6 months to a year, and that wood is just continually rotting underneath. So it might look good from the outside, but then they'll find out a couple years later now their window has to be completely replaced. So
Right.
yeah, there's a lot of maintenance.
One of the interesting things I've learned because I also own a company that manufactures a lot of pest control equipment, so I'm very close to that world, is that carpenter ants and termites are kind of like cheese connoisseurs. People that really like cheese, like those stinky cheese that have mold and fungus actually in the cheese. Like blue cheese is like that. It's blue cheese because it actually has a fungal culture that's in it. And so we go, ooh, that's gross. But some of the best cheese has fungus in it. And so termites are little French connoisseurs, and they really, really prefer wet, moldy wood. And so that's one of the reasons why you really got to keep after these wood casement windows, because if the wood gets wet, if it gets moldy, then we're not just talking about a WDO, wood destroying organism, being the mold and mildew at that point. Now we've got moldy cheese, so to speak, and these little connoisseurs called termites will come in and start to eat up the windows. And then you're not just faced with, some wood replacement. You might have to go throughout the home and replace many, if not all, of the windows then to get them to match. And you could be out tens of, if not $100,000 plus in these wood windows because they're not cheap.
No, and they're definitely not getting cheaper.
No, they're
So
not.
that's for sure.
I grew up in a Victorian house here in Central Florida. My dad worked really, really hard, and he bought this lot on a lake and built this beautiful 5,000 square foot Victorian home. And the entire home had wood windows in it. Now, there were sliders, where you had the two locks on them and you slid them up. And there were certain times of the year you could get those windows up, and there were certain times of the year you weren't opening them for nothing. And they're costly to maintain. You had to maintain them and pull them out every now and then, and true them and shave them and repaint them and put them back in. It was a nightmare. Well, we know the maintenance could be a nightmare. How about the cleaning, Jeremiah? What are some of the steps we're going to take to clean these? Because I know it's not just the glass. There's more to cleaning these than just the glass.
Yeah, that's definitely true, AC. I realize that there's different styles that people go through the years, color choices, but white is very, very, very common.
Very
And
common.
what's interesting, yeah, and what's interesting about the wood casement windows, especially if they have the two divided, like the three up and three down,
Yep.
got these individual pieces of glass. So what happens is whether it's the caulking or the glazing that the painters use really holds on to the dirt. So you might be thinking, okay, I'm just going to wash the glass, and then the window still looks dirty when you're done.
Mm-hmm.
And you spent all this time and all this effort. And if it's a two-story home, you're up there on a ladder trying to clean those, and then you step back and your house still looks dirty. And
What
so
is it about the white caulk that gets the mold and mildew right impregnated in it And then you try to clean it and it turns purple. And now you got all these
Yep.
little purple dots all over your window. It's crazy.
It really is. Yeah. And it can be frustrating, especially as a homeowner or a maintenance person. You put all this effort into it and then you're disappointed with the results.
Mhm.
So it can really be a challenge. Yeah. And then just the paint itself, peeling and cracking. If you're trying to use a mop to wash the glass and then a squeegee, well, then that squeegee blade, that rubber gets caught on those chips of paint
Right.
and it just leaves streaks oh, it's a nightmare. It ruins the squeegee blade, and it's a challenge.
Yeah, they're definitely windows that probably only billionaires can really afford to own and maintain for sure. So let's say we're just cleaning the glass. What would be the steps and the products you would use to just clean the glass portion?
It's a good question because there's so many options, right? I mean, you go to any big box store and you've got all these different glass cleaners. Well, what do I use? Where do I start? And I won't say the name, but there's a popular window cleaning solution company, and they sell this bottle, and they say, "Hey, put it on your hose, turn on the water, and just spray it on." And on the commercials, the birds running into the glass and everything. And it's interesting. I've seen so many homeowners disappointed. They fall for that. They don't realize what's all involved.
Right.
And first of all, the cleaner has too much soap in it. And so if you leave any of that residue, the dirt sticks to it faster. So it actually gets dirty way quicker, right? The other thing is,
So let's clear up real quick here. The things you screw on the end of the hose and you
Yes.
spray and wash your windows.
Yes.
If you're in the Rocky Mountains and your TDS, total dissolved solids in your water, is zero,
Yes.
and you have the most perfect clean water in the world, that might work. But for the other 99.5% of us, probably not a good choice.
That's exactly where I was going, AC.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, your water is going to make the difference. But I'll be honest, like you said, 99% of the time, you're not going to be satisfied with it. It's not going to work right. And the water pressure from your little spigot going through that plastic bottle isn't going to get anything extra off anyhow. So it just creates a mess. But then you've got the spray bottles, right? And the paper towel. You've got the vinegar. That's the old thing, vinegar and newspapers.
Vinegar
That
and
doesn't
newspapers.
work.
Yeah, that was like when I was a kid, son, you have to use vinegar and newspapers on the windows on the
So
car.
So you may know this, AC, but the reason why that does not work anymore, because it used to,
Yeah.
but because they changed the ink as being a plant-based ink, it was all the chemicals that were doing the cleaning.
Right.
And so that's not in the paper anymore. And so now it just leaves a mess.
Now just smears
So
everything. Yeah.
yeah, so that doesn't work. So there's all these different options, all these different soaps, all these different ways to do it. But really, you just have to do some research or watch a podcast like this one to help you understand how you can do it successfully. And really, the best thing to do is get some soap and some water and a little mop and a squeegee and go in there and scrub each one of those pieces of glass and squeegee it down, and then use a microfiber towel to go around your edges and clean up your smears. I mean, that's probably going to be your best, easiest way if you're going to do it yourself.
Yeah.
Not the safest.
Well, not the
If
safest,
you're on a
because
ladder.
the one-story windows, that's going to be easy, but then you got to get up and do the two-story windows, and then you have screens. You got to pull out the screens, and
Right.
depending on what part of the country you're in. Like in Florida, we don't care about our screens. We tear them out because we're never going to leave our windows open in Florida ever. It's air conditioning during the summer, which is 10 months out of the year. And then the other 2 months out of the year, we're using the heat a little bit, but we rarely open up our windows. But if you're in an area of the country where you like to open your windows, let the air flow, you'll probably have screens. Some areas of the country don't have bugs, some do. So you got to remove screens, you got to get up on ladders. It can be an issue. But the other thing is, when you're talking about these casement windows and they have the wood dividers on them, and you've got 3 up, 3 down, or 6 panes on that window, it's really hard to find a T-bar mop and a squeegee that fits that glass to go ahead and squeegee them, mop them and squeegee them all the way down. So, one of the techniques that I did growing up in a 5,000 square foot Victorian home with wood casement windows that were all individual panes is I would go around and and in Florida where our TDS, we were on well water at my parents' house, and the TDS was probably over 500 because our city water here is 350. So well water is going to be, forget it. Okay.
Yep.
Is I would literally, just 5 gallon bucket, squirt of dishwashing detergent, terry cloth towel, and go around and hand wash every window just like I was washing a car, rinse it off with the garden hose, and then I would take a leaf blower and blow them dry. And that was the way I did it growing up. And that worked really good because they did dry spot free because I blew them off with the leaf blower. But again, we had a porch that went all the way around the house. So the second story windows I could stand on the roof to do. And I was 16 years old. So I was nimble, and I'm 55 now. You don't get me on a roof at all anymore. And so with vertigo to add. The glass is good. Now there's a new thing out there that's come up in the last 10 years called a water-fed pole. And so talk to us a little bit how a water-fed pole would work or would not work on these divided, largely painted wood frame windows.
Well, the water-fed pole is great if you know how to use it and you can invest in the equipment.
Mm-hmm.
It can be anywhere from $1,200 to $10,000 for the equipment, and poles can be anywhere from $200 to $300 to $2,000 or $3,000. So
Right.
it is an investment for sure. And then there's the learning curve. And but the best thing about the pure water is you're removing all the TDS, right? All those total dissolved solids are taken from the water.
Mm-hmm.
And it's awesome because scientifically, those solids or minerals, that's what's left on the glass when your water evaporates, right? Now, when it rains, if your windows are clean, you'll notice that you don't have anything left on the glass because there was no dirt on there to begin with. And so when you use a water-fed pole, those water droplets are literally pulling into itself all of those dissolved solids that's on the glass because it's missing it, right? Naturally, you have those things in water. And
Right.
so it's pretty fascinating. But when you go to clean with a water-fed pole, if you've got those small true divided light windows, you could, if they've got chips in the paint and the glazing, you can easily break more off. And so now you've got bigger issues. Now you got chunks of glazing, literally maybe an inch or two long, just coming off around that. So now you've got more water issues in the future. You got more water going into the window. The other thing to be careful of is just because it's pure water doesn't mean you're going to get the results you want. You have to pay close attention to what kind of brush you're using, how well you're scrubbing the glass. So just because it's pure water, it's not magic. People think they get a pure water pole and it's easy, just let it go. And there's still a lot to learn and know.
Especially the wood casement windows, a lot of them are painted white. And if you're on the southern side or the western side, that white paint's going to oxidize. And if you drag your brush across that and then move that brush onto the glass, literally, you'll move that oxidation on the glass. And I can tell you one thing, paint oxidation and glass, they just go right onto each other. And it is so difficult then to get that oxidation back off of the glass. So I would say you've got wood divided casement windows that are especially painted with a paint. I would not use a water fed pole unless you're using literally a 5-inch brush, because you're going to drag that brush across that paint. You're going to pick up oxidation in your brush and you're going to transfer it to every single window. And then you're going to end up with hazy windows. The safest thing to do is to get a great product like Phantom Window Works Levitate, which is a window cleaning soap. Put a little bit in the bucket with some water, mop and squeegee your windows, or, terry cloth towel wash them, rinse them and blow them dry. If you have a squeegee, it's great because you can squeegee them and they won't dry spotted that way. But to do them by hand. Now, I want to transition into the different parts of the window. Okay, so you're an old school window cleaner. You've been doing windows for a long time. That is your heritage. People don't know the different pieces and parts of a window. Go ahead and name some of those parts for us because there are more things than just the glass that need cleaned.
Sure. I mean, you have the frame, you have the sash, you have the seals. There's a lot of bits and pieces to the window. Even just opening it up and cleaning out the crank system and the seals around it really, really well.
Yeah.
There's a lot than just that piece of glass or multiple panes of glass on that window.
So how would you clean those other areas of the window? Because you wouldn't use your mop and your squeegee or your water-fed pole brush because you want to keep those like wholly dedicated, set apart, sanctified, so to speak, because they touch glass. So you don't want to use that stuff. What would you use then to clean the sill, clean the sash, clean the frames, clean the tracks, clean the gaskets and all that stuff? What would you use?
Sure. So for us, what we'll do is if if a customer wants us to do absolutely all of that, we'll crank open that window. We will brush out all of that dry debris that's been collecting for years, and then we'll spray that with a cleaner. We'll wipe it up and the seals and everything with a microfiber towel. Make sure it's nice and clean, and then on the outside, we'll actually use our soft wash technique, and we will spray it down with there's a product called Terra Wash that Soft Wash System sells, and that's a nice degreaser, and it, just a little bit goes a long way. But we're able to break down that dirt, the spider webs, the mud daubers are horrible around here, and we're able to break that up, rinse it off. And so we'll start with a cleaner surface. We even have a brush that's designed just to clean around all of that wood surface. So we're able to break that dirt down ahead of time. We'll rinse it with water. Then we'll come back with the water fed pole and we'll be able to rinse the glass. And so we're starting with a cleaner surface to begin with. If you try to do all that with the water fed pole, it's a mess.
You want to definitely, if you're doing a window like that, you definitely want to start with the guts out. You don't want to clean all the glass and everything and then come back and clean the sill and the sash and the frames and the tracks and all that kind of stuff because you're going to booger up the glass while you're doing all that. You want to do all of that first and then finish with the glass. Now, let's say we wanted to put
Absolutely.
and I know this is a dirty word to window cleaners, but it's a benefit that we found through our training here at Soft Wash Systems. Let's say that homeowner, property owner, chief engineer, maintenance director wanted those windows to stay cleaner a lot longer. Is there a product that we can put on there to make those hydrophobic and make them repel dust and dirt and pollen and things like that?
Absolutely. And I've been doing windows for 24 years. And I'll tell you, I've never found a product like Final Wash. Final Wash is a waxing soap, if you will, but this waxing agent we're able to apply to the glass, and we'll do a little agitation, and then we're able to rinse that down with pure water. And what's amazing is it blew my wife away. We use it at my house. We use it on customers all the time, houses and their windows. It makes the window not just shine, it really pops, but better than that, it makes the window hydrophobic, which helps keep the dirt and the bugs and everything from sticking to the glass too quickly. And that, unfortunately, is the downside to squeegeeing. Because when you squeegee a window, you leave residue on the glass and the dirt sticks to it faster. And so with our process, we're actually able to use this Final Wash. The windows stay cleaner longer, which really is a value to our customers. And it just, man, I'm blown away by it. It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Final Wash, we say making it hydrophobic, we're literally putting a coating on the surface that makes it repel dust, silt. And the only thing I can really, it's not exactly like this, but I can kind of say it's close to like this. And it's something people will relate to that may not be window cleaners, is this new craze of ceramic coating your car's paint job. They even ceramic coat the glass now. They ceramic coat the paint. and they've got different stuff they put on there. They'll take, and in some of these videos, take a bucket of mud and you throw it on the car and it just all runs right off the car. And that's what final wash does. So for me, if I was going to do all full window detail and I was rolling out the window, the casement window, or if you have sliders, slide them up or swinging them out or whatever you're doing, I would take like a sponge and a bucket with water and some final wash in it, take that sponge and clean the sill, clean the sash, clean the tracks, clean the frame of the window, wash the window itself, have another clean bucket that I can then take that sponge and wring it out and wipe off all the dirt, wipe everything off, because you don't want to rinse it with like a garden hose or something, because you've got it all opened up. It may go in the house, but then wipe away all the soap and all the dirt and everything, wring it out in the clean bucket. Okay. Take your microfiber towel, dry everything off, and then close that window. And then maybe you could go ahead and grab your small mop and your small squeegee and do the individual panes. Or, go ahead and scrub the glass now with the sponge with the final wash. Okay. A different sponge. I'll tell you guys, you need to separate your tools. So buy different color sponges and get a green sponge and make that green sponge just for glass, because if you wash the frame, you might pick up some sand or things in your brush and go back to wash the glass with it later and scratch the glass. Especially here in Florida, we have a lot of silicone sand and we can scratch the glass if we're not careful about what we use. But take a separate sponge back into the final wash, wash the glass with it, rinse that off with some distilled water. People are like, well, I don't have a pure water generating, like our trucks that we have here, soft wash systems. We literally have an $8,000 piece of equipment that makes pure water on demand for us. Zero TDS, beautiful, non-spawning pure water. But for those that don't, you could take and go to the grocery store and take a 2.5-gallon pump-up sprayer and fill it with distilled water and then rinse down your windows after you wash them by hand with a sponge and final wash with that distilled water, and they will dry absolutely spot-free.
Yep, you can do that for sure. Yeah. Yeah, and everyone has access to distilled water, for $1.50 probably a gallon now. You can buy yourself some. Yeah.
Yeah. And so one of the other things that I would point out too is we talked a lot about white painted casement windows. The other thing that I've seen that has become very, very popular is staining the wood. And so you might get natural wood that's been stained. One of the things that I have seen firsthand and have coached a lot of people through is whenever you stain wood, it's supposed to get maintenance coats, or you varnish wood, it's supposed to get maintenance coats. And stain does not hold up very well to the UV rays from the sun. And so that stain breaks down, and very, very few people do the maintenance that's required on these types of windows. So that stain will break down, and then you go to start washing these windows and the stain just comes off. That's not their fault, is it, Jeremiah?
No, it's not. It's just a lack of maintenance, unfortunately, by the homeowner.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, because having these types of wood windows is a huge responsibility. That's why I called them billionaires' windows, because when you put these on a home, you have to factor for all the maintenance. I mean, they're going to need painted every 3 to 5 years or stained every 3 to 5 years with maintenance coats on the stain yearly. I mean, it becomes a huge reoccurring maintenance issue. And a lot of times is either window cleaners like us, soft wash, we clean windows, we're soft wash companies, or DIYers, hairy homeowner or maintenance director or a facility asset person or somebody like that goes out to clean these things. And the worst case scenario happens. They start having a bunch of oxidation coming off the paint, or the stain just washes away from the wood. That can be scary, but I want to reiterate to anybody that's listening to this podcast or maybe landed on our landing page is reading this, that this is weather and Mother Nature that did this, not the window cleaner.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the UV rays are crazy, what they can do to, wood, plastic, metal. But yeah, that stain just gets destroyed if it's facing the south and the west, especially. if it's not maintained, you're going to find out real quick when you start to clean those. So,
So, Jeremiah, let me ask you a question here. And it's a question I ask everybody, all of our pros that comes on here on Ask a Soft Wash Systems Pro, is we do know that some jobs are smaller or some people are DIYers. They enjoy, I mean, for some people, it's relaxation. I remember I got kidney stones once, and to deal with the pain of the kidney stones, I went out and cleaned my garage because I couldn't just sit in a bed and just deal with the kidney stones. There's some people that love, just really like and love projects, and they like to do this kind of stuff. And they're listening to this podcast, they're going, man, I'm buying some Levitate, I'm buying some Philo Wash, and I'm going to go get me some little mops and squeegees, a 2.5 gallon pump up sprayer, and some osmosis water or distilled water. And this weekend, I'm going to tackle my windows. And before they do that, they have some questions or they need some coaching. Do you have a problem with them calling you and getting some coaching?
no, not at all. We have customers ask us, even customers we have, hey, what can I do in between time? What do you recommend? So I've got no problem, sharing. These aren't secrets. These are things that people are using all over the country and the world. So it's not a big deal. I'd be happy to help someone with a 5-minute phone call of what they can do to take care of their project. Sure.
That's awesome. Or if they get overwhelmed or decide to do a larger scope of work, I'm sure you'd be happy to go out and look at the job, come up with the scope of work, and give them a price as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. And sadly, homeowners find out, I mean, a lot of the times the project is way bigger than they expect it to be. And we're happy to help. That's why we're here. That's why we've been in business 24 years because, we know what we're doing, but we're here to help you and add value. I mean, that's what we're here for.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So if you find yourself this weekend wanting to take on the project of cleaning your wood casement windows and you want to get them absolutely gleaming and you're ready to take on that project, hey, you can go to your local Wash Life store. You can call one of our Soft Wash Systems licensed affiliates and get some coaching. You can buy our products. You can do it yourself, and we can help you do it. But if you do get in over your head or you decide you want to go golfing or fishing this weekend instead, any one of our licensed affiliates around the world, like Jeremiah here, would be more than happy to help you out with your project. Right, Jeremiah?
Absolutely.
Cool. So, guys, this is AC Lockyer, and this is Ask a Soft Wash Systems Pro, and I will see you at the next podcast.